please.
Carlson. Hurtak. Clendenin. Henderson.
Present.
Vieira.
Here.
Miranda. And Maniscalco.
Here.
We have a physical quorum.
Thank you very much. We're going to start with item number 39, which is a review hearing. I believe that everybody was sworn in. Yes, ma'am?
And if I may, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Just for the public. So I had spoken about the issue with the mental health and police officers. If I may, can I have that come up after this hearing, sir?
All right, okay.
After the hearing, after.
It was, what came up with item number 4? Oh, I'm sorry, with TPD, item 42. Okay.
Yes, sir. Since we have some officers, I don't want them to lose their time. Thank you
All
very
right, we have
much.
a motion and we have a second from
They're on-
Councilmember Carlson. All in favor?
They're on
Aye.
limited time. Thank you.
Go ahead. Yes, ma'am.
Kamaria Pettis-Mackle from the Legal Department. I'm here on item number 39, which is a review hearing of staff's decision in SG 12313 for the property located at 111 East 24th Avenue, I'm sorry. No, 1411 East 24th Avenue. I apologize. The petitioners are Crystal and Danielle Oliveri. They applied to city staff requesting for an accessory dwelling unit, and staff denied that request on January 2nd of 2024. Staff denied their request on the basis that the applicants did not meet the criteria as established in City of Tampa Code Section 27-132. And I previously provided the sample motions, the rules of procedure for City Council to use in order to conduct this review hearing, and Code Section 27-61, which is regarding how to conduct what the purpose of the review hearing is. So staff, I believe it's Laura Marley, will appear to explain why they denied the application on January 2nd of 2024. As I previously provided to you, Code Section 2761, subsection J3, provides that City Council will conduct a de novo review hearing, which means City Council can accept new evidence. After the presentation from staff, City Council can take the following actions. City Council can affirm the decision of the zoning administrator who denied the request for the accessory structure, since it did not meet the specific code requirements in 27-132, or City Council can overturn the decision of the zoning administrator and therefore approve the application for the special use, which is for the accessory dwelling unit. I'm available if you have any questions, but I'll like to turn it over to staff. And I don't know if staff has been sworn.
Staff
Any
has been
questions?
sworn.
Have you been sworn, ma'am?
Yes, sir.
Yes, okay. Go ahead, ma'am.
Good afternoon, Laura Marley, Development Coordination. May I please share my screen?
And if you could please turn up your microphone or the volume in general so we can hear you better.
Okay. Can you see my presentation?
It's coming up and they're going to make it bigger now. All right. We can see your screen, so if you could go open up the presentation.
Okay. My presentation is up. Let me change it to this one.
Laura, you need to switch screens.
Okay. I just switched screens. Do you see it now?
We're looking at the Code of Ordinances right now.
We can see it, but it's not very clear. It's very small font. Oh,
Let me pull it up a different way then.
there it is. There we go. Go ahead.
Okay. Petition for review, SG 12313. Crystal Olivero and Danielle Olivero. The property address is 1411 East 24th Avenue. The zoning is RS 50. The special use request is for an accessory dwelling unit. And here is the location of the property. outlined in red. The accessory dwelling units, code standards are, it shall be limited to 950 square feet of living space. It may only be approved when the main residence is owner occupied, and it may only be in a conforming accessory structure. And there may be no more than 2 people in the accessory structure. And then it is also reviewed annually by staff. This is the site plan. On the bottom right is the shed, which is proposed to be the accessory dwelling. As you can see, the dimensions on the east side are 1.9, so it does not meet the accessory dwelling unit of 3 feet. So if I could show the attention to B, the accessory dwelling unit may only be approved when main residence is owner occupied. The property is not occupied by the owners. They are presently serving as active duty military and are stationed out of state. And then C, it needs to be in a conforming structure, but the accessory structure is 1.9 feet from the.
Can you hold on one second, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Can you ask the staff to change your screen so that it's full screen for the slideshow? Because we have the sides on it's very difficult for us to see your presentation. And if you could speak closer to the microphone so we could hear you more clearly.
Okay. Let me see.
No.
Is that any better?
No, it's on a different screen. We just need it larger so we can see it more
The one
clearly.
that doesn't have it is the side.
Yeah, we're looking at your presentation PowerPoint screen right now.
So are you looking at the full screen?
The center's on which button she's supposed to push.
Well, hit escape. First, you gotta hit escape and get out of what you're in.
Okay, can you see it now?
Okay,
Yeah,
there you go.
there we go.
There you go.
All right.
So which slide would you like to see?
Yeah,
Or would you
start-
like me to go over the whole thing again?
No, start with that one, then we can see the site plan more clearly.
Okay. Would you like me to go over anything else, or would you like me to go over the
No,
whole
no,
presentation?
just keep going, you're good.
Okay. So those were the 2 criteria that the applicants don't meet is B and C. And that's the end of my presentation.
Councilmember Hurtak.
Is the shed already there?
Yes, ma'am.
So what you're asking us to do is basically vest the existing structure, no?
The applicant is proposing to change it into an accessory dwelling, and it would, in our code, it needs to meet the 3 feet. It does not meet, so yes.
Okay,
that's
thank
what
you.
the applicant is asking. You're welcome.
All right, does that conclude your presentation?
Yes, sir.
All right, any other questions or comments before we go to the applicant? No, go ahead, please state your name.
Crystal Oliveri. I'm authorizing Stephen Michelini to speak on my behalf.
All right,
We just need to put that on the record so that we can move
Okay.
forward.
we need your name, sir.
Steve Michelini, I'm here representing the Oliveris. The issue here is that they were previously stationed at McDill. They were reassigned to Delaware, and they cannot be owner-occupied residences there. By the deed that they purchased the property in 2022, it clearly shows that the unit with accessory dwelling existed and was there in its present condition. There were no additions to it. So as the councilwoman had asked about the setbacks, yes, they're requesting that that be vested as it exists and that the owner-occupied waiver be granted as they cannot physically be there. Their intention long-term is to return and dwell in the main structure. However, as long as they're deployed outside of this area, they can't do that. So they're here to answer any basic questions you might have, but essentially that's the issue, is that they're simply requesting the waiver for owner occupancy and that the unit be vested as it exists on the property currently.
Yes, ma'am. Councilmember Hurtak.
Do you own any other residential property in the city of Tampa?
I do, yes, in South Tampa, over by McDill. It's a townhouse.
Okay, okay. So I just wanted, yeah, okay, thank you.
Anybody else? All right, does that conclude your presentation?
Yes, unless you have any questions for the owners, but, you know, their hardship is military service, and they're committed to that military service, which they cannot get out of. So we're asking for, first, that you recognize that, and second, that you recognize the structure is existing. And the third element of this is perhaps looking at some kind of waivers that are being provided to military personnel regarding land use development coordination issues. But anyway, yes, that concludes my presentation, unless you have some specific questions for them.
Nope, anybody else?
Oh, I was going to mention one more thing. The ADU is 450 square feet, so they meet the other criteria regarding size. The only issues that we're dealing with are the setbacks and the owner occupancy.
All right, thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Is there anybody here for public comment? Yes, ma'am? No. Well, where's he at?
Super glue on the chair.
Good afternoon, Stephanie Pointer. What I gave you, the pink sheet, is what state statutes say, that these ladies and any other active duty member are allowed to retain their homestead. What has not been explained is that these ladies, if you look, this is the MLS listing where they bought the house on the second page. And in the description, first of all, it says main house and a detached mother-in-law suite. So they were sold something that they thought was totally legal. But if you also keep pushing your little finger down to where it says mother-in-law until 6 of 22, and then the main house until 2023. They were rented when these ladies bought the house. So these ladies bought this house thinking that they were going to move into the bigger part of the house at some point and rent out the ADU, or vice versa. But it was already rented. It's always been that way. And there was never any permits for it. I went into Acela and looked. But what we have to take into consideration is this pink page on the front. And why did they never even got a chance to move into this place. They bought it as their forever home, and then they got PCS. They had to move. These are the folks that I deal with every day on my job. I know you guys don't think I have a job, but I do. So these are my folks these are the folks that I help rent their homes. And these ladies, I just looked up the case because that's what I always do. But I found that in this particular case, I think the city of Tampa needs to give the same honor to our veterans who leave their houses, our active duty military who leave their homes, as anybody else. And I sent you guys an email about this months ago. I sent it to the land use folks, and I want it to be taken into consideration, because just because they're not here doesn't mean that they don't love this house. And that's why I do what I do. I don't deal with investors. I deal with folks who bought a house because they loved it and they have to leave it. And there's a completely different mentality when you buy a house because you love it. They never got a chance to move into it, so they still have homestead on their townhouse. But I wanted to make sure that you guys understood that these ladies didn't get up in the morning and say, hey, I'm going to build something and I don't care what anybody says. Obviously, the previous owner had done that, and he owned it forever. Whoever it was, he had been there forever and ever, because this was the first time it was on MLS. So I support these ladies, and I appreciate, and I want to thank them for their service. And I have an extra copy of this, so I'll give it to Marty.
Thank you very much. We got copies. Is there anybody else for public comment? No, we have nobody registered. Rebuttal, sir? Wait.
No, the only thing
Councilmember-
is, they bought it in good faith, they operated in good faith.
Wait, hold on a
No,
second.
no,
hold
no,
on,
no,
hold on.
that's,
Councilmember Hurtak.
yeah, but I mean, my question was going to be, about Homestead. Well, I think Homestead is relevant only because that's the whole point of this, is that that's why I asked if they owned other property, because that's why I wanted to make sure that this wasn't just something they were buying and renting a bunch of places, but if this is the house they wanted to homestead, but they didn't get a chance to move into it because the military moved them, then I don't think we should punish them for that. I was just curious if we have anything in the legal realm that has to do with this about Homestead, and this may not be this may be a question for Bob Henriquez, I don't know, but,
Well, counsel, I'm sorry.
Kamaria Pettis-Macco from the legal department. City Council, I provided you the criteria of 27, well, it's in the staff report, the code section for 27-132, the specific criteria for accessory dwelling units. That's the only criteria staff and City Council can use for this application. And it's not about, so I just want to focus your attention on what's in the code.
thank you.
Yes, sir.
So, Mr. Michelini, can you point us to exactly what you want us to consider to overturn staff's decision?
The requirement that is there for owner occupied in order to qualify for the ADU, and the vesting the existing structure as it currently is developed and built with the setbacks that are there. The other criteria regarding the size of the structure that meets that criteria already, so we're not here for that.
I have the form that they emailed me zoning saying, why they denied it.
No, they have that. He's just asking for what the motion needs to include.
I'm just for criteria for codes.
Specifically, those are the two criteria, that the existing structure should be vested and that the owner occupancy issue be waived.
Okay.
Anybody else? We have a motion to close from Councilmember Vieira. Do we have a second? No, you. Second. Who's the second? Second from Councilmember Henderson. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The hearing is now closed. What is the pleasure of council? Would anybody like to make a motion?
Go for it.
I make a motion to overturn the denial of the zoning administrator's SU 1-2313 for the property located at 1411 East 24th Avenue, because the petitioner provided a competent substantial evidence to waive the specific requirements for the accessory dwelling units that are required in the City Tampa Code, Section 27-132, for the following reasons. Their military service has temporarily prevented them from being able to comply with the owner occupied, and the existing, the structure that they're looking to convert to an ADU is an existing structure.
We have a motion from Councilmember Clendenin. Do we have a second? Second from Councilmember Vieira. Roll call vote.
Carlson?
Yes.
Hurtak?
Yes.
Clendenin?
Yes.
Henderson?
No.
Vieira?
Yes.
Miranda? And Maniscalco?
Yes.
Motion carried with Henderson and Miranda voting no.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, counsel.
All right, next we're going to take 42.
Get your bags in those.
And we have TPD here. No.
Long story short,
They just love, they love us so much that they came back.
yeah, I was under the impression.
I'll make it, I'll make sure they watch.
If I may, Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir, go ahead.
Thank you very much. I wanted to thank you all. I know you guys have been here for a while, have limited time, et cetera. Just a and we thank you for your patience, et cetera. Very, very important issue. I was speaking to some of our mental health unit folks at, gosh, I forgot what public event it was, and I said it would be so great to have you all come before City Council and talk about the great things that this program, which is essentially a pilot program, I guess y'all will explain. I'd love to see it expanded. I know that in Tallahassee, I don't know if it came through, State Senator Jay Collins had requested funds to assist this very program, and hopefully that went through. So just an important issue, but let you all go for it.
Well, thank you. I'm Captain Royka, I'm over our Support Services Division. Lieutenant Robin Polk, she's over our Behavioral Health Unit. And so we'll give you a little background as to how we got to where we're at today, and we'll show you what we have. Let's see.
No, it's upside down.
Upside down, thank you.
That's right. Isn't she coming too?
So approximately 3.5 years ago, we were tasked with setting up a behavioral health unit to really focus on the mental health issues in our community, to how we could better respond to them from the law enforcement side. A lot of times we get the calls coming into our comm center saying there's a person in crisis, and we respond with our police officers. We realized quickly we are not the best trained professionals to handle mental health. So we looked at models from across the nation. We looked at Oregon for the Cahoots program. We looked at the Dallas program. We looked at programs from San Diego, from I believe it was Phoenix, from Oklahoma. We looked at local programs as well. Then we met with all of our community providers, and we have a plethora of community providers that we work with. And we said, you know, what do you recommend after learning all the facts from all the different programs? What's the best program for the city of Tampa based on where we're at, the resources that we have? And everybody settled on the co-responder model. So we implemented a co-responder model a few years ago, and I have the structure here for you. And currently it is designed that we have a behavioral health lieutenant who oversees the entire program. And then beyond that, we have 4 sworn officers that's overseen by a supervisor or a corporal who's a supervisor, and they're paired up with 4 licensed clinicians. Licensed meaning that they can go and they can actually write the Baker Acts. They can make the assessment, takes the burden off of law enforcement because we have a very limited scope of what we can Baker Act for, but they can do a full assessment and they can write the Baker Acts themselves. So they have 4 clinical licensed social workers, and then we also have contracted with 3 providers that we have case management built in to where we can make warm handoffs directly to the facilities. And then we also have 2 provider partners who provide those same services and said, listen, we believe in your program so much, we want to come alongside of you and we're going to offer you some of those services as well. So that is the basic structure of our program that we have. And I just want to highlight, if I could please, some of our community partners that we partner with. And as you can see, there's a long list of community partners that we work with. And so when we have a client that we're dealing with who has been under a Baker Act, or they're ones that might not have been a Baker Act, but they're exhibiting some behavioral health issues that really could use some services, we can reach out to many of our providers and start connecting them with services. With that said, the success of the program, I'm going to let Lieutenant Polk talk about the success of the program and some of the stats that we've had. So, Lieutenant.
Yeah, so he's going to put up some numbers comparing 2023 to 2024. As you can see, the number of Baker Acts has decreased. The number of follow-ups, new cases, and closed cases has increased. We see that as a positive. That means our behavioral health unit is out there in the community serving what we want them to do. But also a key component of this is our BHU, as we call it, serves the highest utilizers in the city. Okay, so those are people that we're getting repeat calls for service that are in the most crisis, that law enforcement, to give you a success story, we had a house that we had responded to, an individual that was experiencing mental crisis over 500 times in about a 6-month period. We hooked them up with our behavioral health unit, got him long-term treatment using some of those partners that we partner with, on the right medication, and for 7 months we have not dealt with that individual as a law enforcement agency. That is a success. That is lowering, freeing up resources to do the things that we need them to do, to allow the police officers to do things we need to do. As you can see, the total clients served, we're steadily increasing that, and since inception, we've served over 1,000 what we call clients, people that we have connected with services and helped to get to a better place. Also, we're going to talk a little bit about one of our sister agencies, which is St. Pete Police Department. They have a different model that they use. We use the co-responder, as Captain had mentioned. This is a variation. They use what we call the call program, and it's utilizing navigators rather than the licensed clinicians. But what and these are the kind of calls they respond to: suicide threats with no weapon, people with no known violence. The key things that's different on this is our program focuses on mental health. This increases to include truancy, disorderly juveniles, and homelessness. I will say this past year we restructured kind of how we run the police, the BHU unit, and we combined it with SRO, and that has been a great success for us. A lot of kids that are more unruly rather than really at mental health crisis yet, we've started kind of putting them on our radar to monitor at a younger age and get services and help those families.
What is SRO?
School resource officer, I'm sorry, ma'am, yes. So they're embedded in the schools, they're embedded with those kids, and they're dealing, a lot of times people come to the school resource officer to ask for help, parents, right? Like, what do I do? I'm at my wit's end. And we're able to connect those families with services much earlier on by way of having the BHU unit. I think Captain is also going to talk about our future, which we believe is bright, and I love that you want to give us money. We love that. But we are growing the program, and we've gotten a lot of grants that has allowed that, and I'm going to turn it back over to Captain to follow up.
Thank you. And if I can, one important distinction between the call program and TPDs. Theirs are not licensed clinicians, so when it comes to the mental health side, their evaluation process is different. They cannot execute the Baker Act like our clinicians can, which is a very big difference between the two programs. Both programs have value. Both of them run parallel tracks. They focus a lot on the social work side of the house, while we're focusing on our side, really reducing the repeat calls for service of our mental health clients, because we also want to reduce it's in our policy as our goals, right? We want to reduce deadly force encounters with people who are suffering from mental illness. So we're really focusing on our side on the mental health, where the call program focuses more on the social work side of the house, both equally important. We have a Connect and Protect grant that we received, where we are going to embed crisis center counselors and call takers inside of our communications center. So when those calls for service come in for a person in crisis, we can have somebody inside our call center take that call, triage it, and a lot of times resolve it before it ever gets to the police side of the house. Should it need police service, it's right there in our call center. They transfer it over to our dispatch. Our dispatch then can send an officer out along with a behavioral health specialist, if they're available at the time, to handle those calls for service. We are always looking for an opportunity to grow our program. We want to expand. We believe there's a lot of value in what we do, and we believe we've been successful so far, and we just look forward to a great future.
Councilmember Vieira.
Thank you very much for sharing. Thank you guys for your presentation. It's obvious that you all are true believers and passionate about this. I prefer the co-responder, what the city of Tampa is doing, as opposed to other cities. No disrespect to other cities. I just think that's good. That's also safer for the mental health professional. I happen to think that. But this is something great that does a lot for de-escalation, help the good guys do their job, right? And get the people out there who have specialty in mental health challenges. And, you know, I think we all come from the position on this that we are all one crisis away from a mental health crisis. Every last one, every person in this room, myself included, all of us are. Many of us have been there. If you're not, then you will be, right? Because it's just part of being a human being. You know, I do want to make a motion to have this come back in August. So let me ask you all, if I may, how much is this funded right now in the budget? If you don't know, that's totally fine.
Off the top of my head, I don't know with the total budget. I know that we have a partner contract with some of our service providers, and that's around $100,000 that we do to look at our operating cost. I'd have to go back to that, but it's in the range of like $500,000 to $600,000.
Great. Okay. So what I'd like to do is to make a motion. I'm not going to make it. I'm going to make it. Yeah. I'm just saying what I'm going to do. Is to make a motion to have this come back to us in August, so the administration can propose to us their projected budget, and hopefully it'll have a good, robust increase in it. And I also did want to say, I always do believe in giving kudos where kudos due. This was proposed in the budget by former Councilman John Dingfelder, I remember, in maybe 2020. September of 2020, as I recall. I remember when he made it, I was sitting at my computer at home because we were virtual. So I did want to say that. But yeah, just thank you all very much, and God bless you guys. Thank you.
Councilmember Hurtak.
Thank you. And I do appreciate what you're providing. I'm surprised that there's a lot of focus on Baker acting. That's concerning for me, because there are a lot of people who have behavioral crises that don't, I would probably say a majority of them don't rise to the Baker Act level. So I would rather see, when you're talking about numbers, if you could talk about the people you're reaching instead of the people you're Baker acting.
So, yes, ma'am. And we don't just focus on Baker Acts. I was more focusing on the reduction of Baker Acts.
Okay.
So each team is also specialized. Like we have, and that's more so on the clinical side, right? So we have people that were like substance abuse counselors and therapists. So they have that specialty, and all the stuff that deals with substance abuse and those community partners, they take the lead on. We have a team that specializes in, and they can respond to everything, but that specializes in veterans, homelessness, youth and stuff like that. So we do incorporate all that. It's not just Baker Acts.
Okay.
We were more trying to show our reduction in Baker Acts, which is a positive thing by utilizing these folks. And I will also say, when we respond to that scene, the clinician is actually the lead. So, which automatically, to Councilman Vieira's point, de-escalates. Because when we show up like this,
Yeah.
we look scary, right? But when the clinician shows up, and it automatically de-escalates that situation, and the individual in crisis, whether that's substance abuse or on the mental health side, they feel more comfortable to talk to. And truly, the officer is there predominantly for safety.
And ma'am, one final note on that. One of our goals is to reduce Baker Acts. So that's our absolute goal, is to drive down the number of Baker Acts as much as possible, because we don't want to, we understand the dynamics of Baker acting somebody, and our goal is really to reduce that.
And I think that's wonderful. And I think what you all are doing is amazing. And I do want to see the program grow, except that I disagree with Councilman Vieira. And I really believe that we need to add a component that's similar to St. Pete's Call, where, they've had, I believe the last information was like almost 3,000 calls in a year where they didn't have to call for a backup of an officer at all. So I'm looking for, if we have additional funding, to kind of have a both model, because it includes those things like truancy and homelessness. And if we could add to your team, as it were, then we could reach in different areas, because I know you also have a homeless liaison department, and we have one in housing or growth management. So, just combining all of these things together, I think is a worthy goal going forwards. But I do agree with you that having a clinician available to do those types of work, to take it out of police officers' hands, it's more work that you shouldn't be doing, that you don't need to be doing, that someone else is, as you said, better trained to do. So I think just adding more people to your team that can do the work that, quite frankly, you aren't supposed to be doing either. And there's a lot of that, unfortunately, that's put on you as society asks you all to pretty much solve every problem under the sun. And as I do ride-alongs, I'm amazed at the types of calls you go to. It's always fascinating. So anything to actually help and boost this, but to also expand it in ways to reach others, is something I would love to see in your additional motion. Is, what are ways that we can expand to see maybe if we could bring some more non-clinicians in to help round that out with some of those truancy and homelessness. And I forgot the other thing that you had up on the slide, but yeah, those issues, and just continue to expand this wonderful, wonderful program.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Councilmember Carlson.
Yeah, thank you for your thorough update and enthusiasm about the program too. For anybody who's watching who doesn't know what we're doing, what the genesis of, Councilmember Vieira mentioned it briefly, but back in 2020, lots of people in the community came forward and asked us to adopt a Kahoot-style program. City Council can't do that on our own, so we asked the administration to look into it, and this hybrid was the solution the administration recommended. There were some folks in the community that were happy that we had something, and some that were unhappy that we didn't go far enough, and they brought up the call program, but also the Cahoots program, which you also mentioned. As one of the main concerns that the committee had was kind of what was referenced just now, which is situations where someone might be having a mental health challenge and a police officer wasn't trained. And so I think there were fears in the community that could potentially put the individual's life at risk or the police officer's life at risk. And so by having an intervention with somebody who's trained, it helps get people the treatment they need more quickly, but also might protect everyone. It sounds like it's been a success based on what you said. I know some of the mental health people I talked to were afraid, locally were afraid to go out without police officers. But the community said there are programs like Cahoots where they do. Just briefly, could you all just tell us any more flavor of what you think the pros and cons would be of a Cahoots program versus what you're doing, and as you're telling more stories in August, it would be great to give more examples of anecdotes where where the intervention really helped improve somebody's life or situation or help protect police officers.
Yes, sir. We have hundreds of success stories, so we would love to share those. Probably don't want to sit here for us to tell you about hundreds of them. But we agree there's value to both programs, right? Ours, and we just, we've hired numerous clinicians now. I do think safety is a concern for mental health professionals. They are not used to operating in like the streets, like going out, like people come to them, right? So that's kind of a fear that people have. But the wraparound services, I think, is the key in case management and having someone to connect and those providers, whether that's, with Veteran Affairs, whether that's with homelessness, whether that's with housing. Those are the real, because that's a lot of times mental illness may be one thing, but the core problem is something else, and that's how we get introduced to those folks. So I think the call program is great, and the other programs are great for wraparound services and stuff like that. I think for mental health, the behavior, what we're doing is the most common model in law enforcement. 2,700 agencies across the country have adopted the mental health model. And Councilman Carlson, to your point on training all officers on mental health, we have started training every single officer that's hired by the police department in crisis intervention training. Our mental health unit does that training for every officer. So they're getting 40 hours, and we use outside folks to come in, outside psychological people with doctor's degrees, come in and do that presentation for us. So all of the officers on the street are trained in mental health, and then our BHU unit is those on the officer side is even more trained. So,
could I just say, you all are doing a lot of the things that the community asked us for a couple years ago, and it would be great for any of the communication people watching if we could push this out more in the community, because the more the community knows about specifically what you're doing, where you could go through more case studies, it would help to put the community at ease and let them know that we're all listening to them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, ma'am, and then.
Yes, thank you, Officer. I just have a question about the communication within the police department about this particular unit in terms of expanding it. What conversations have you had at the executive level with the chief of police? Are you all asking for something in return to increase and improve the program?
Ma'am, we are always looking for opportunity to grow our program. I don't feel comfortable speaking for the chief on specifics on what he would like to do, but I know that we desire to grow this program to make it more robust. We know there's a lot of needs in the community. We look at our model that we currently have. I can't provide 24/7 coverage as we currently stand just because I don't have the manpower to do so. So we would love to be able to expand the program, but on specifics, I'd have to defer to the chief's office to be able to give you a little more. And I can get that and come back. I just don't have that in front of me.
I understand. Well, we're getting close to budget season, so we should ask for what we need if it's going to fit the community's needs and improve and decrease certainly any challenges that may be, put the officer as well as our citizens at risk. The other thing that I wanted to ask you about is data in terms of geographical districts. What is the representation in terms of how you're addressing this throughout the city? Do you have any data on where most of these incidents occur, where you're having these interactions?
So we're very data driven, right? We track everything that we do. Because our unit is so small, we have 4 two-man teams. They're kind of citywide. So now for Layton That means after the fact so if an officer reaches out and says, hey, I think this individual could really use the services at the BHU, we have divisions. So we have 2 of those units work the north side and 2 of them work, we've kind of just split the city in half. That's on the after the fact investigation. But for live calls, which is part of what they respond to, and that's going out in the moment, maybe someone has a gun, is threatening something, and that's where we are able to respond to that. The non co-responder teams cannot. Those are citywide. As far as pulling out data of where the most Baker Acts or mental health calls for service, that does become a little bit problematic because the call doesn't always come out as that. So the call may come out as there's this guy wandering around the CVS, right? But once we get there or the officer responds, they're like, wait a minute, something else is going on here. And they wind up calling our mental health unit when it becomes something a little different. So a lot of times those calls aren't completely accurately captured. But yes, we collect the data. Yes, we're citywide. As far as having like, when we have crime and there's like a hot area that maybe crime's occurring in, we don't really see that as much on the mental health side. It tends to be citywide, and our struggle is more geographically. If I have one mental health team and they're in New Tampa and something happens south of Gandy, you know, that's a long drive, especially if it's 5 o'clock, so.
Councilmember Vieira, do
Thank
you want to
you.
go ahead and make a motion?
Yeah, so if I may, I'm going to ask the administration to come back in August on the monetary amount that's going to be proposed to the expansion of this program and to address Councilwoman Hurtak's concerns, and let me know if you're amenable to this, ma'am. I would ask them to speak to all of us on improvements that we can make to the existing model. Is that something?
Yes, but specifically to see what we can, and what you called the social worker side of just kind of adding some additional, let's be honest, cheaper people who can help with the social service type work that would benefit and help bring what you do, just to elevate it to support in other areas. Because I believe that these types of support workers too, they have their specialties, and quite honestly, they have very different specialties, but they don't have the specific training of our officers, who are well-intentioned, and but you're better equipped to deal with actual police matters.
Yes, ma'am.
If I may inquire, is that to go along with police officers, or
No,
okay,
no, not to go along with police officers, to kind of look at the call
So
model. So to have to not get rid of what we're doing, but to add people on, and I believe you called them
Navigators.
Yes,
They were called
navigators. So they would be just like an add-on for some of these issues that we don't deal with, the homelessness, the truancy, the other one I can't remember, to sort of grow the program so that this program can truly reach everyone.
Sure, and what I'll do, if I may, is to have administration speak to council members about that option, et cetera, and just to present it all and see what they're gonna fund it. Is that good? Okay, that's my motion.
August 22nd.
That's a good, Councilmember Vieira has a motion. We have a second from Councilmember Hurtak. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Shelby.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to ask council to consider 48, 49, and 50, being how it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon and we have some serious discussions ahead of you. A great suggestion, if council is willing to commit to it, was made to be up. Councilman Vieira is not here. To move items 48, 49, 50, and I can still in time amend the notice for Monday, and after you select a budget analyst, if you're willing to commit to perhaps 90 minutes, I would think at the most for this, then we can have this wrapped up on Monday if you don't want to hear it today, or if you wish to have it continued.
I'm good with Monday. Councilman Vieira, Mr. Shelby was making a request or a suggestion for his items 48, 49, and 50.
Which is that one item, it's really the one memo that I gave to
The
you.
one memo, but to postpone it until Monday after the budget analyst selection.
Is higher.
Okay.
Can I
Anybody have any
I just wonder if
objections?
there's anybody who has an issue with that, because I really would appreciate a full council.
I have-
Second.
We have a motion from
What?
Councilmember
For that
Clendenin.
Monday?
Yeah, but it
Oh,
should,
yeah, I have that on my calendar.
Yes, this is our budget, our special call session to choose our budget analyst.
And on that basis, if that's the motion, I will amend the notice.
Before we vote, I need to check my calendar because I know that we're having the budget analyst.
It was just a suggestion that was made this afternoon based on the hour, and I don't want to hold up your rest of your day's meeting, but I'm prepared to do it today, but I don't know if that's in the best interest of city council at this time.
I can stay as late as you need. Mr. Chair, could I
Yeah.
just point out one other thing? 46, we have a group of folks who've been waiting a long time today.
No, I know, we're gonna go to it now. We have, hold on. Oh, is everybody good for Monday? We have a motion. We have a motion from Councilman Clendenin. Who was the second? The second from Councilmember Hurtak. All in favor? Aye. Okay. We,
Thank you, that's
have item
continued
number,
then.
yeah?
Madam Clerk, that's all continued to Monday? 48, 49, 50? Are we good? You're not talking to me. Okay.
Okay. Councilmember Carlson pulled item number 30, and then we have item number 41.
So 30.
It shouldn't be long. Neither should take long. Yes, ma'am, item number 30.
My purpose in pulling number 30 is just, so it, on the surface, it's just to hire an attorney, but I wanted the public to understand what it is and what it's for.
Good afternoon, Andrea Zellman, City Attorney. Yeah, while we're hiring an attorney, we're not really hiring her for the purpose of representing the city as outside counsel as much as just to be a project manager. And specifically, as you'll recall, back in December, you all approved a settlement of a lawsuit that pertained to a parental leave policy from 2017, 2018. And we entered into a consent decree with the Department of Justice, which, once it's approved by the court, will require our HR department to do a lot of paperwork, coordination, training, arranging for training, arranging for updating policies, and frankly, it was just too much for the current staff at HR. And so the thought was to find someone outside the city that could be sort of the compliance monitor and make sure that the city didn't miss any deadlines, because the consent decree has a lot of tight deadlines. And so the firm we found is a law firm that also does this type of compliance consulting. And so this is simply a contract to hire them. It's capped at $25,000. It's estimated it won't last more than a year. So that's what this is.
All right, Councilmember Miranda, it's your committee. Would you like to move item number, all right? Second. We have a motion from Councilmember Miranda with a second from Councilmember Vieira. This is item number 30. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you very much. Item number 41, due to the amount. Is there anybody here for, yes, is that Mr. Washington?
Sir, can you hear me? Yes, sir.
Hello, sir.
Good afternoon, Council. Larry Washington, Director of Solid Waste and Environmental Program Management Department, here to discuss item number 41, which is the purchase of 8 crane carrier side loaders. So those are your residential collection trucks at the total amount of $3.9 million. A memo was submitted. Do you have any further questions?
Any questions for Mr. Washington? No. Do we have a motion to approve this item? We have a motion from Councilmember Henderson, second from Councilmember Clendenin. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you very much, sir. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you as well.
All right, item number 46. I see Ms. Nguyen. Yes, ma'am.
Good afternoon, Council. Sia Nguyen, Administrator of Neighborhood and Community Affairs. I just have to catch my breath for 1 second. Council, you asked us to come before you on responding to the workshop motion from February 22nd regarding a report or proposal to create a racial reconciliation committee by the administration. And I submitted a memo to say that from the, based on the charter, that you have the ability to create that committee with the approval for the mayor. And we do approve you, or on behalf of the mayor, we do approve you creating that, we do approve you creating the committee for the racial reconciliation as per charter. Councilman I don't know if you want to lead in, Councilman Vieira, but you provided a report, and I'm sure all of you have received it, regarding topics for the Racial Reconciliation Committee. I would like to say that we, the administration, we can provide members to or names for the committee based on some of the advisory councils that we've already had that have already worked in the space. So that will give you a leg up on not starting from scratch, but from the work that's already been done. For an example, the affordable housing, the affordable and attainable housing, we had a committee for that. I'm not sure if you're aware or not, but we had a committee for Parks and Recreation and Youth that included not only Hillsborough County, but some of the other parks-related, youth-related entities within the city or organizations within the city. So I just wanted to make that announcement or that recommendation to you, that we can, and in fact, and are willing to provide members as you create this committee based on what you have already, based on the committees that we've already, the advisory councils that we've already had.
So for clarity, you're saying a suggested list of people,
A
not,
suggested-
this
no.
is what you just, okay, so
A
it's,
suggested list of people,
Okay.
since we've already worked in that space in some of these committees. And then you can just leverage from them the work that they've done and move forward from there.
but this wouldn't prohibit council members from selecting
No,
who we
this is,
choose.
in fact, we
okay.
prefer you select them from your own committee or for your own council, but we will and are willing to make some names available for you.
Okay, but if I
you
wanted
choose-
to appoint specific individual from the
Abs-
community at my discretion, or any council member, that's, okay.
Yes, sir, that's what it is. That's exactly what I'm saying.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
All right, Councilmember Vieira, it's your motion, so go ahead, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. This wins second time, I'll tell you thank you today. So again, thank you so much, man. We really, really appreciate you. And a very, very important committee. I had proposed these 6 areas after talking with a lot of folks, some of the folks who have been here today, et cetera, including in the room right now, just to make sure that we set pivotal topics and to give the committee guidance on some of the, more critical issues involving racial equity, et cetera. Things like affordable and attainable housing, restoration of rights. I mean, you look at all these issues, affordable and attainable housing, so important, our youth, a big issue. Restoration of rights, finishing the work after Amendment 4. The new statute has implementation ideas that local attorneys can do. Returning citizens, something that we've worked a lot on. Entrepreneurship, economic opportunity, contracting, ignored history. That includes everything from historical markers to cemeteries, things that are really, really important. And I had suggested in this memo, and again, council, do with it what you will, some frameworks for appointments that could have you guys, the mayor's office, having 6, each council member having 1, which would be 7 in total from Tampa City Council. A facilitator, I think, is very, very important. I've spoken to some individuals from voluntary bar associations, and I've had some significant interest from that. So we're not yet finalized there, but that should be hopefully forthcoming. And then staff, and again, you've talked about that, and we really appreciate that. So, what I was looking for, and I think I got it, right, with the mayor supporting it, wasn't just saying, yes, it can be done, but it's to say, yes, and we're going to support you. And that's the message that I hear today, so I'm very grateful for that, and I really, really appreciate that. I'd also suggested these meetings take place at City Center or Haven Avenue. Again, however council may go, having the meetings, the sunsetting of the committee, et cetera. Having our city council attorney, Mr. Shelby, there, not as a facilitator, but just to make sure that the letter of law is followed. So that's it. But again, thank you so much, man. We really appreciate you. And again, maybe council, what we can do is talk about this, flesh this out, and then maybe have appointments finished within a month, and then we just have the committee ready to go. I'm thinking.
So I looked at your, I'll go to Councilmember Carlson. I looked at your memo, and I like how organized it is, and the topics that are, the committee would work with: affordable and attainable housing, our youth and opportunity for youth, returning citizen, restoration of rights, entrepreneurship and economic opportunity, including contracting for marginalized areas, and ignored history, which would include historical markers, cemeteries, etc. And those are just some examples, but looking at here, I think it's well organized. I'm just giving my introductory comments, but Councilmember Carlson.
Yeah, two things. One is what I hear in that is that the mayor doesn't oppose it, but I don't see that the mayor's putting resource in. If that's wrong, you all can talk about what that means. You all will remember that after you all allow me to present the TampaScorecard.com for the first time 4 years ago, that Tampa Scorecard clearly shows inequities in the community, disparities between men and women and blacks and whites, and Tampa in particular as compared to cities like St. Pete and others. And so the community said, what are you going to do about it? And so we, City Council, proposed an economic advisory committee made up of a diverse range of 24 folks. I got USF to get involved in looking at data and helping the community through the data, and the mayor offered to chair it. So in that case, the administration was fully involved. And so my first question is what resource are we really going to have to be able to put this together? But the second big question is, you all can Google Tampa Economic Advisory Committee, and you can find the results of this committee on the website, and then you'll see that almost nothing was done with any of it. And I think we need to hear from the community. We need to understand specific solutions that the community recommends. But we also need to understand whether we, along the way, whether we have the tools, whether we as a city and also we as city council have the tools to be able to implement any of it. Because if there are some things the community really wants and the administration doesn't want to put in the resources for it, then we can't implement it because city council doesn't have power over the administration. So I hope that this is successful. The community needs this. We need to listen to the community. We need to resolve some of the issues that have been exacerbated, really. We think of these issues as being old, but they're not. The issues were exacerbated in the last 10 or 12 years. And so we need to bring our community together and build collaborative efforts to grow our community in the right way. Thank you.
Councilmember Clendenin.
Yeah, I would assume, well, one resources I see in Councilman Vieira's presentation, he's suggested that the city attorney be present at these meetings. So that's a mayor's resource.
No,
Excuse me, I'm sorry, no,
that's
Mr.
Mr. Shelby.
Mr.
Oh.
Clendenin, may I address that, or you want to wait till you're
This
finished?
says from Louis Vieira.
Yes, but I suggest that our city council attorney be present.
Oh, city council attorney be present.
And
City council attorney.
And I'm happy to do that.
Okay.
But to ensure compliance with the Sunshine Law, to ensure compliance with the Public Records Law, the Ethics Code and the like, to ensure that. But I have to share with you that I am not a subject matter expert. I am not competent to act as a legal advisor for the kind of things that may come up within the committee. I appreciate Councilman Vieira's memo. I think it's excellent the way it's laid out, and his suggestion to get a facilitator from the George Edgecombe Bar Association would be a wonderful thing, who may be able to address or at least guide in those sort of ways. So I think that that's a good choice, but I'm happy to be there to assist in this process.
See, I would assume that a city attorney, because of all the other legal issues that come up, this would probably be appropriate for this committee as well. I mean, it just seems to me. Also, obviously taking place at City Center Hannah is a city resource, so that's city resources.
May I just add one more thing? I'm sorry.
Sure.
But it's because you're talking about resources. This is a sunshine board.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously, an agenda has to be prepared by somebody.
Right.
A notice has to be prepared by somebody. And in the case of the budget office, I do that. The Budget Advisory Committee. But also minutes need to be taken, and that's presently handled for them, for the Budget Advisory Committee, by the clerk. This, again, is going to be on Hannah Street.
Right.
The clerk is not necessarily based there, but
Lots of resources. Yeah, so I also, you know, when you look at that, I'm assuming now this proposal that Councilman Vera has presented suggests that the mayor is going to appoint 6 members. Hopefully, they'll do the due diligence and put 6 subject matter experts that would, because there's going to be budgetary concerns, there's going to be legal concerns. I mean, there's a lot of things, so hopefully when they look at their appointments, they'll take those seriously and put those types of folks on there so they can bring that to the table. And the same thing for our appointments, making sure that we put people there that are able to speak to the issues and because I agree with Councilman Carlson's frustration with a lot of these things. In government, we create a lot of committees, but they don't produce anything. And I think it's what we have to be careful is we create something that actually can produce a product at the end that is you know, accounts receivable. So people can look and say that it's produced something. So I think it's critically important as we structure this, then we all take those appointments seriously, that we are able to bring people there that can facilitate a product to get an end result. That's what I'll be looking for. Thank you.
And before I go to Councilmember Hurtak, I forgot to add, it says here, I'm talking to voluntary bar associations having an attorney volunteer his or her time. To me, that says there is an independent legal voice that's not coming from the city, but there's
city issues.
May I?
No, go ahead.
Just to clarify that, just briefly on that narrowly targeted point, no, that would be as a facilitator. They would not be there acting in their capacity as an attorney at law. I just think an attorney, maybe I'm biased, but given courtroom procedure and order, I think that would be great, just on that.
Councilmember Hurtak.
Thank you, and thank you, Councilman Vieira, for putting this together, and thank you for the public who came week after week to make this happen. It's you made it happen. I think this is a great idea. I like a lot of the details. I am also concerned about resources because when I look at like the Citizens Budget Advisory Committee, they definitely use a clerk for all the minutes and making the agendas, and then there's nothing in here about money, basically, and what it's going to cost. I agree with other council members who suggest that if that lawyer is going to only work as a facilitator, that we also include someone from the city attorney's office who does understand these issues from a legal basis. I agree that Mr. Shelby would be great for ethics and all of those other issues, but as he said, he is not a subject matter expert. So if someone from the city attorney's office could participate as well as that, not necessarily, know everything, but a basic subject matter expert that then we could call in others or that they could do some more research. So I think that someone from the city attorney's office would be great. And then again, the other issue, I think Hannah City Center is fine, but I also believe that this needs to be on a weeknight, and add to the fact that it needs to be noticed in the way that like our city council meetings are noticed. Not other meetings aren't necessarily noticed that way, but definitely to notice strongly and to make sure these meetings happen in the evenings.
I agree.
So, but yeah, thank you so much for taking the lead on this.
Anybody else? Wait, Councilmember Henderson. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Chair, so much. Councilman Vieira, I appreciate your Racial Reconciliation Committee notes that you shared, recommendations. I think before you actually take a look at that document, you actually have to look at the actual Resolution 568. And 43 months ago, it was presented and approved by this body September 3rd, 2020. And about 6-8 weeks ago, because the community was coming forward, constantly talking about Resolution 568, I had the city council attorney, pull the resolution for me so that I could take a look at it. And it does declare that this body here, who actually created Resolution 568 43 months ago, it does say that it declares its support for creating a reconciliation committee. Today, now you're asking the mayor to add 6 people to a committee that you just actually are trying to create for the very first time and talking about it only in recent weeks because it was presented by the public. Within this resolution, there was some things such as this commission may address, and there's some items listed by alphabet, A, B, C, D, E, and F. And then there's Councilmember Vieira's recommendations. And they really actually align somewhat, but not necessarily so based on what's in the resolution that is what's binding. This is a recommendation. This is what's binding in saying what we may address. And so from that standpoint, I just believe that the wheelhouse of area of expertise in appointing someone makes me very uncomfortable unless this particular person has a level of expertise that deals with reconciliation. The volunteers should be experienced in this particular field and want to serve in this capacity to be able to speak to some of these issues. One of them, C, addresses mass incarceration. Does the city of Tampa have control over mass incarceration? No, we actually do not. And so that in and of itself is something that we have to deal with when it comes to the resolution, because it's written in Resolution 568, but we ourselves cannot deal with mass incarceration. Can we deal with policies within the city of Tampa regarding employment and what some of the community members spoke about today? Yes, that could be a part of it, but mass incarceration is something that cannot be. What, did that timer start for me at the beginning? Okay, because I just need a little bit longer. Okay, thank you so much. So for me, while this body voted to support the creation of a committee, I think that we should take a little bit more time in looking at exactly what that means from where you all went back 43 months ago and created this particular policy that already exists, and looking at what Councilman Vieira is proposing in terms of what he's recommending. The other aspect of this is that we also need to look at all of the city's policies that currently exist. There are many things that we actually do that center around Resolution 568, and maybe we should ask staff to identify those areas like affordable housing and employment and things that we already do that could be a part of Resolution 568, to identify staff policies and our mission, and go back and look at everything that we do, our transformation policies, everything, to say, hey, these are things that we're already addressing. We have to put that into this mix. We don't have to recreate something that already exists. I appreciate the community coming forward, but I don't want to be interrupted when I'm talking, Chair, so can you please make sure that you use your mantle if necessary? I appreciate it. The other part.
If we could please. She's speaking. Thank you.
Yeah, it just breaks my. I have a couple of points I want to make, so it's about respect and also me not breaking my concentration. So I thank you for that. The other aspect of Resolution 568 coming before to this body is that there are other people to take into consideration: the county commission, Hillsborough County Public Schools, the Department of Transportation, the state of Florida, the United States government. This barrier is bigger than just the city of Tampa. We cannot solve every single problem. We can.
Excuse me, she's speaking. Thank you.
Okay. We can't solve every single problem, but we can begin to address the barriers that exist in our own city by first looking at our current policies and saying, hey, this is what we already do. Do we do it well enough? Can we improve upon it? Yes or no? That is where we should start, from the very foundation of not Mr. Vieira's recommendations per se, but at the resolution that was written 43 months ago, and the 6 recommendations there. Start from the very beginning, not adding and saying, well, the mayor should appoint 6 people and we should appoint 6 people. Let's look at the resolution first and say what is realistic in terms of what we may consider, and go from there. I'm not saying that this committee should not exist, but it should be comprised of people who have the areas of expertise as well as the passion to move the city forward and to make amends to the African American community and the horrible policies that did exist that kept our families from growing and expanding and building wealth. There are things that did take place. It started with the apology, and let's just do the work. You don't have to be angry. What you can do is bring your passion, and let's get to some resolutions that we actually can work toward improving based on what already exists. I think all of us, it is fair to say that we are not a horrible city, but do we have some work to do? Absolutely. Does our staff, the mayor as well as us, work toward improving the city on a daily basis? Yes, we do that. And I really appreciate your time, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else?
Yep.
Councilmember Clendenin.
So, to correct the record, I think you, in the beginning of your, Councilwoman Henderson, you talked about the creation of the committee. The resolution 568 was only restricted to recommending, and it was up to the mayor to create the committee. Now, the mayor has come forth with Osea Wynn, has just notified us that the mayor is supporting doing that. So we did not have that information until today. So that's why we move forward. You know, honestly, a lot of this stuff is just distraction. Let's move forward, create the dang committee. Let's get it done. I mean, it's time to do it. Clearly there's pain. Clearly there's issues across our society, and this is such a, we talk about a no-brainer. This is just a no-brainer. Let's just get it done. Create the committee. Let's put subject matter experts on here, people that can actually move this thing forward. Let's make sure that it has the support. Let's make sure it has the legal advice. Make sure it has the right type of people on there so they can actually produce a product, something that is receivable, something that could actually produce a product at the end. So I say let's stop talking about it and let's do it.
All right.
Okay, that's not necessarily true, Chair, because if it was, oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
If it was a no-brainer, then the committee would have been created 43 months ago when you actually signed the resolution.
Council didn't have the authority to do that.
The resolution.
Oh, my God.
The Section 3, the City Council of Tampa hereby declares its support for the creation of a reconciliation commission with the mission of studying and developing proposals to redress the enduring negative effects of the institutions of slavery and the subsequent systemic discrimination directed at Tampa's African-American residents by promoting racial and social equity.
Can I ask the attorney?
It did not say, so the mayor today, in Ms. Wynn's report, she stood up and said that the mayor will support us creating it. What was presented today was, well, the mayor should add 6 people to the committee. So I'm just trying to get to the root of, you know, what we should do and how we should start. How we should start. Is it based on what's written in the resolution, or is it based on what's written in the recommendations provided by Councilman Vieira?
Can I ask the attorney a question, please?
Councilmember Clendenin.
Mr. Shelby, does City Council have the authority to create this on its own?
It does, pursuant to the charter, just as Ms. Wynn's memo does state that is it 9.01, I believe, as long as the mayor signs off on it,
Right.
then you can. And that is, by the way, that wasn't always the case.
But the mayor has to sign off on it.
Ever since the voters adopted that change in 2019.
Right. Okay, very good. Thank you.
Yeah, when I was first here in 2015, we did the Citizens Review Board for the police. It was a back and forth battle and of who could create and this and that, but it was changed by
But the mayor
by
has to.
charter.
But the mayor has to sign off
The
on it.
charter
that-
has been updated.
Now, Osea Wynn just notified us today that the mayor will sign off on it, so we're good.
Okay,
We're good to go.
Councilmember Hurtak had her hand, Councilmember Carlson, and then Vieira.
Thank you. I agree that the city has done work in different areas, and we do continue to improve. That is true. I mean, we just had a debate about this last week with the East Tampa Park. That's coming forward is we continue to improve, but the issue is we aren't putting all of those kind of in one place to look at them, see what we have improved, how we can make that better. And I think that's what this committee will do. These are the types of issues that we keep hearing about over and over again. The only one that we may not have much power over is restoration of rights. So I don't know that that is a topic that might be a topic that we want to take out and replace with something else. Maybe the entrepreneurship and economic opportunity is a very big one. So maybe we can have that for 2 days or 2 sessions. Just because yes, there are a lot of things in this that we can't control, but the things we can control, we should absolutely do, because it's the right thing to do, and we have been doing some things, and I think highlighting what we already are doing and then being able to add to it when we can see it all in one place is a real positive. So I'm absolutely thrilled that this is I'm hoping this goes forward. I think this committee is exactly what the community has been asking for, and being able to look at everything kind of in one space through one lens to be able to see what we can do next and how we can move this community forward.
Councilmember Carlson.
Ms. Nguyen, there's been some discussion about whether proposing that the mayor would have 6 board members. I think the question is that are we entangling the mayor or obligating her? Do you have any idea if the mayor doesn't want to appoint board members? I think we would be happy to appoint 2 each or something like that. But I assume my colleague was trying to be collaborative and offering those positions. But do you have any idea if the mayor would like to appoint some folks? She's kind of implied that she doesn't want to run it, but do you know if she would like to appoint folks, or would she just like us to appoint all of them?
Osea Nguyen, Administrative Neighborhood and Community Affairs. I think the fairest thing to say is that we are interested in being collaborative. We've already provided through the advisory councils that level of expertise, and it will be much of the same to support what you have mentioned, Councilwoman Hurtak, in terms of we've done some things. So we'll just be presenting the things that we've already done. So I think in terms of the administration, we prefer to continue to be collaborative. I cannot speak to the mayor or the administration in terms of whether or not the mayor wants it's about appointing members or not. It's about doing what's right for the community and helping us move forward, move ahead in the most seamless manner.
So thank you. I would just propose, Mr. Vieira, when you make your motion, maybe put 2 options in there that we could vote on. And I would propose that City Council would each appoint 2, and maybe you as chair or creator could appoint 3 or something like that, if you need a tiebreaker. And then the other thing, Mr. Shelby, usually in boards like the CRA-CACs and others, we're encouraged not to go because it might create sunshine issues. Should I assume that even though these meetings will be noticed and minutes will be taken, should I assume that it will be discouraged that more than one of us would show up at one meeting, or should we all be encouraged to show up at all the meetings?
I wouldn't discourage you. It's a public meeting. There's nothing that's going to be coming necessarily, and it's going to be noticed, and there's minutes is going to be taken. What I would suggest is that you would not discuss them among yourselves, those items, but you're certainly able to be present. It's certainly over at Hannah Street. I don't envision this being televised. There's been no discussion about it. I don't know if they even have the capabilities over there yet, and whether that you would have that done. But no, I wouldn't discourage you. As a matter of fact, as an interested member of the public, obviously, as a decision maker, I think it's a good idea to go if you want.
Yeah, I would just ask, I heard Council Member Henderson say that they can broadcast if it's easy, if it's just a room that they can turn on a camera. I would suggest that it would be put on YouTube because it would be helpful for the community to hear, and maybe folks in the community would like to provide additional feedback. And in case we can't attend in person, we can watch the videos. Thank you.
Councilmember Clendenin, all I'm going to say is a couple things, then I'll go to Vieira.
So maybe I'm being optimistic, but when I looked at Councilman Vieira's proposal and the composition of this committee, I found that it would be interesting because I don't want just to create a committee that just creates a document that just sits in a drawer and nothing ever comes of it. So I was intrigued with the collaborative aspect of it, where the mayor could appoint folks because they're subject matter experts and they can facilitate. We all know that once things are out of our hands, it's up to the administration to facilitate and get things actually done. That's where the rubber meets the road. So with their collaboration and their input and their people that are actually staffing this, they have a voice in the final product. And I think that's important to make sure that we have a product a proposal that produces a product. And so everybody's got to be on board. So when the thing's done, you put it on the tracks and you and you get it going. So I really would encourage, and hopefully, I believe, I'm kind of sensing from OSEA, but, I haven't spoken with the mayor herself, but that perhaps the mayor is vested in this and is willing to get those folks appointed so that we have a collaborative effort and that we can create some type of meaningful program.
And I'm ready to support the creation of this committee 100%. I, again, appreciate your memo and your suggestions, sir, so go ahead.
Yes, sir. So, and I want to clarify, because this will have relevancy to my, to the motion to be made. So is for the administration, because I put forth, as Councilman Carlson and Clendenin said, a proposal, is the mayor not inclined to do appointments? Or, because that has a lot of bearing on what I'm going to do. I think for the reasons Councilman Clendenin said, I think that would be wise. But again, that's up to you guys, obviously.
Councilman Vieira, when, in February, we were asked to come back to report on the proposal to create a racial reconciliation committee. As part of that proposal, we referred to the charter, where the charter said that you can create the committee and with the mayor's support, and that's what we were bringing back to you, based on what was asked of us in February.
Okay. So, I mean, I've talked to the administration before about appointments, and I know discussions have been had, and again, if that's not ready to be presented, again, I think if, and I don't mean that with you, I mean just in general, if that issue is not ripe, I think and I agree with Councilman Clendenin, I think that would be a really big missed opportunity for the administration and for the city if it wasn't done jointly. And when I talk about, and correct me if I'm wrong, so the administration then would also be providing staff, not just a Hannah Center, but potentially staff in terms of if, like I said, I think in my memo, I think I may have said this in there, if we're talking about youth, maybe somebody from Parks and Recs. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, and that's what I mean about the collaboration, because we've done work in the area. It does not make sense for us to start from the committee to start from scratch if we've already done work in this area. So we'll provide those subject matter experts to provide their expertise on the topic that's being discussed.
Okay.
Otherwise, you could be recreating the wheel, and we've already left the barn, so.
So how about this, and I'm gonna, and also wanted to say a couple of things quickly, if I may, that Councilwoman Henderson, I really, really appreciate your words, and I, value your input on this. We've had a lot of discussions, not on city issues, but just on related issues on United States history, et cetera, and I just value your words 110%. With regards to the facilitator, I want to specify that that would not be a legal counsel. Again, that would be somebody to help run the meeting. I think an attorney is very well positioned. I did this motion because I think it's important for us to listen on this issue, and that's where this begins, is to get a committee that's representative of the community on this issue so that we can listen and do better. And that's it. And there's a lot of these things that we have done, working together, the mayor and city council, great things on. There's things where we can do better. So I think that's important. So let me go ahead and make a motion then. I'll have this returned to us. Let me make a motion, number one, to formally create the committee. That's number one, part of it, to formally create the City of Tampa Racial Reconciliation Committee, pursuant to the 6 pillars that were mentioned. And I'll take Councilwoman Hurtak's suggestion. I'll make it 5, and I'll put restoration of rights with returning citizens, because that's kind of under the same subject. And to have that, and then to have this come back with appointments to us in, let's say, the first week of May.
Appointments by whom? Can you clarify?
And that's a good question. So, yes, ma'am.
Why don't we say today we're going to create the committee, you take our suggestions and come back with the full, because the suggestions of taking out the restoration of rights, the suggestions of adding someone from the city attorney's office and someone possibly from the clerk's office, and then what funding we're looking at, and the fact that we want the meetings to take place in the evening, and then I had a suggestion for the preparing of a report to have action items.
Absolutely.
Not a report, but action items. These are the things that are possible for us to do and how we can do them.
So we would create, because I want to make sure that we create this committee today. I think that's important. And Mr. Shelby, by making this motion, do we create the committee?
No,
How do we do that?
you direct a resolution to formalize it.
back with a resolution.
Okay, so how about this? I asked then city staff to come back with a resolution. Next week we have CRA. So the following week, which is, I'm sorry, I'm terrible.
18th.
Okay, on April 18th with a resolution, which, so for the public, we can't create it officially without a resolution, so
Well,
it's coming back.
But let me just share with you, and from my perspective, what the resolution needs to contain are all the elements of what this
Yes.
committee is, how it's supposed to operate, what its purpose is.
Yes.
And what guidance you give to the appointees, and what,
So-
and
Can I
what-
make a
and-
suggestion?
And what kind of appointees, and who makes the appointments and the like.
I would make a suggestion that Councilman Vieira work with our attorney, Marty Shelby, to draft this proposed resolution and bring that back to City Council on April 18th.
Boom, there you go. Yep.
Happy to do that.
And again, and this motion will include those 6 areas. I think that's very important. Again, it'll be put down to 5, but those 6 areas that we'll work on.
It'll
And
be
then
5 plus, it'll be 6 minus 1 plus 1.
there you go. And
We have a
it's-
motion from Councilmember Vieira. Do we have a second?
Yes.
The clerk has something very important to share.
I just want to make note that you have a very lengthy day on April 18th. You have already 13 scheduled, not including anything you continue from today.
Review hearings
If I
as
may,
well.
maybe council members can look, if I may, Mr. Chair, at what we have on that day, and we can, if I have something, I can take it.
I don't have any, I don't really make motions. so
Can we,
it's
can
not
we,
me.
can we make it early in the day since these folks waited so long? But also, on the, to his point, on the issue of how to construct the board, I think maybe in a separate vote, you could ask us to approve either or. So either what you proposed here with the mayor appointing 6 and then each of us appointing 1, or if the mayor doesn't want to participate in that part of it, there's a lot of other things, then the alternative would be, I'm just throwing something out, but 2 for each of us and 1 and 3 for you. But if we could just go ahead and approve that, I think that's fundamental to how to construct it. And instead of waiting and having that discussion that day, you can just go ahead and propose it since we've been talking about it.
Ma'am, Mr. Chair?
Yep.
I would rather, and I agree, Councilman Carlson, we're gonna pick one of those 2. I want to give the administration time to finalize their response. I'm fine with either one. I just don't want to jump to a conclusion, and we can deal with that in 2 weeks in an efficient manner. In other words, not, but yeah, we'll have those issues handled before.
Sounds good.
Who made the second? I heard
A
3
question,
people. Yes,
just another question, just in terms of a public notice and getting it up on SIRE, that only literally gives us less than a week to be able to prepare that, just so you know, because otherwise it will not make the
We'll jump
agenda.
on that.
It will not make the agenda.
We're 2 lawyers, man.
You got Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah.
Yes, we do.
Now, are we putting this under consent,
No,
under staff report?
yes.
And I'll look at
But,
that.
and also there's the request, you want it early up on the staff reports, is that what you want?
I'll get a memo the 3 o'clock the day before, and it'll come up. But we'll talk about putting it early.
I just have clarification as well. So the 6 topics, as it relates to Councilman Vieira's memo, which are suggestions versus the information provided already in Resolution 568, which are also 6 items are listed there as well. So
Yes.
make sure you have to look at both documents.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And if I may, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Yes, my motion is pursuant to the memo I drafted. Yeah, which I've done after speaking to folks in the community. And again, we've also had the opportunity as council members to do that for some time. So that's what my motion encompasses, is the 6 things from my memo.
We have a motion and a second, and Councilmember Hurtak.
Yes, I am looking at the calendar. No, I mean, just to do it, there are 2 things that are simply on the staff reports and unfinished, because they're over $1 million. There is just approving the final language of the land development code cycle, which we've already looked at. And then Councilman Vieira, you have like 6 things.
I know.
So you get to
So,
choose some things to
I'm gonna
move.
I'm gonna be a barber, trust me.
Yeah.
Hey, like this kind of
So I think, so out of those 13 things, some of those are just simply are going to be because we have to have them.
Yes.
And I believe that we could, if, possibly with Mr. Carlson's, approval, move the FDOT update.
A lot of these I can
Yeah, some of
move.
these we can,
Yeah, so,
but it's FDOT, they'll be happy to move it.
Yeah. All right, we have a motion, we have a second. I look forward to supporting it again. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you very much. Last item on the agenda, item 47. Yes, ma'am.
Rebecca Johns, Legal Department. This is a proposed ordinance to implement a monitoring and compliance fee for affordable housing. For affordable housing developments that are approved pursuant to Live Local, House Bill 1339, or pursuant to a city code provision like a bonus provision, the city is responsible for monitoring. This could give somebody a complex. Everybody walking out.
We're happy to see you.
The city is responsible for monitoring those developments to make sure that initially the tenants are qualified tenants, and then they monitor them once a year to make sure they're meeting the affordable housing restrictions. So this ordinance would reimburse the city for the staff costs that it takes to monitor those developments. This ordinance would actually just implement the fee. We would then pass or install the actual amount of the fees pursuant to a resolution. That'll just make it easier. If you want to change the fee down the road, you just adopt a new resolution instead of having to amend the ordinance. We will be submitting a proposed resolution with the second reading of the ordinance, which would include those actual fees. The fees that we're looking at are an initial fee of $1,000, and then the annual fee of $500 for 5 units or less, and $50 for each unit above that. But again, that would be a resolution that would come with the second reading of the ordinance. And again, this would only apply to the developments that are approved pursuant to Live Local, House Bill 1339, or City Code. For those projects that the city funds, those fees are already included in funding agreements or are covered by the administrative costs with the funding.
Any questions, or Councilmember Hurtak?
I just want to thank you all for putting this together so quickly. This is one of those last hurdles that we, as a city, we don't often remember to do after putting everything together. So I just really want to say thank you for putting this together to make sure that we can keep track and make sure that all of these affordable units stay affordable. So thank you.
Do you need any action from us today?
Not today. If you are okay with this ordinance, then we will bring it back if you set a date for us to bring it back for first reading.
You want a date today?
How?
Is it ready, or how much time do you use?
It's ready.
We have a meeting May 2nd. Would that be a good date for you?
That's fine. It's ready to go, so.
So I'll make that motion to bring it back on May 2nd. We shouldn't really even need to, it'll just be a quick approval. So thank you so much.
I may have a lot to say. Councilmember Hurtak with the motion for May 2nd, second Councilmember Miranda, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's time for new business. I'm going to kick it off here.
Chair Pro Tem recognizes Chair Maniscalco.
Thank you very much. So the Strauss Center is in the process of preparing an application for funding to the State of Florida Department of Arts and Culture for the support of their annual artistic and arts program, education programs. And I'd like to ask council for the support, that we write a letter of support, and I write it to the state on behalf of the Straz as chair, coming from the council.
We have a motion on the floor from Chairman Maniscalco, a second from Councilman Miranda. All those in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it.
And happy early birthday, Councilmember Clendenin.
Happy birthday to me.
All right, Councilmember Miranda.
Yes, sir, I have a couple of them. For off-site combinations, one is for John Rignon for this Saturday. He turns 96, and he's been a stalwart in the restaurant business and a very competent architect, received many awards, and I'll have all that put in the combination and give the council a copy of it.
And when are you going to do the commendation, off-site?
Yes, off-site.
Okay, we have a motion from Councilmember Miranda, second from Councilmember Carlson, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, any opposed? Go ahead, sir.
The second one is also off-site, and that's for April the 27th for the Fuentes company, and Carlito Fuentes, who his father was one of the stalwarts who started a cigar company here in Tampa many years ago and hired many hundreds of people, and saw what was coming, the end, and he moved the operation to Dominican Republic, and the rest is history. They're one of the largest producing cigar companies in the world, and some of the most expensive cigars. And he's coming back because he was born here in Tampa, Carlito is, on the 27th of April because that'll be his 70th birthday. And I'd like to make an off-site accommodation to him.
We have a motion from Councilmember Miranda, second from Councilmember Carlson. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Anything else, sir?
And one more. I move that staff be present to discuss the appointment of the Community Benefit Agreement Committee, that's CBAC members under staff reports, unfinished business on April the 18th.
We have a motion from Councilmember
Second.
Miranda, second from Councilmember Clendenin. Wait, yes,
Community benefit agreements for what?
And the staff asked me to do this, I'm just turning it in, see what they want.
yes, sir.
Councilwoman Henderson, there was a memo that was dated April 1st that was sent from Osea Wynn, and it was based on a motion that was made wrong thing. Here it is. It was a motion that's dated April 1st, and it was from Javier Marin from the Economic Opportunity, the director, and it is related to the creation of a Community Benefits Agreement Committee pursuant to an ordinance that you passed on January 5th of 2023, the Community Benefits Ordinance, and according to Section 2, it creates the board. I have a copy of this memo if you'd like, but it's also in your backup material. So thank you, sir.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
That's it, Chairman, thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Councilmember Vieira.
Thank you very much. Just a couple quick ones. Well, actually, let me go last afterwards because I got to clean up the agenda on April 18th. But really fast, if I may, motion for commendation for Heart Mechanic Ricardo Fernandez. They had a retirement party for him, and I couldn't make it. I wanted to give him a separate city council commendation for his decades of service.
We have a motion
Is
from
that offsite,
Councilmember,
sir?
Offsite.
Oh, yeah.
Councilmember Vieira with the motion. Second was Councilmember Miranda. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Yep, commendation, I was asked by Iron Workers Local 397 for their 100th anniversary.
Second.
It may be off-site, may be on-site.
We have a motion from Councilmember Vieira, second from Councilmember Miranda. All in favor?
Aye.
Then I want a motion to add a code of conduct for City of Tampa contractors. And I'm working with Mr. Carl Brody on this. It may take a little bit. I want to put it on the agenda for, let's say for August, the first week in August, if I may, just to have it on there and we'll.
Second.
August, you say?
Yes, sir. August 1st, please. Thank you.
That's a great day. Councilmember Vieira with the motion, second from Councilmember Miranda. Yes, sir?
Yeah, could you just please include a discussion about parking? We've had so many problems around parks and, because, well, anyway, you could.
Here, we all got those emails.
Yes, we did. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Anything else, sir?
That's it. Well, and I'm
And
gonna.
then I'll come back to you. Councilmember Henderson.
I have nothing, Chair, thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Councilmember Clendenin.
I have one. I've had several requests from folks. We close public streets for special events, and I know that with the stadium, we have that special event where we close, we have a procedure with Ray J to do that. So I motion for staff to report back with a review of Parks and Recreation special events process and potential ways to streamline the application review and implementation process on June 6th.
We have a motion from Councilmember Clendenin, second from Councilmember Miranda. All in favor?
Aye.
Anything else?
That's it.
Councilmember Hurtak?
Happy birthday to myself.
Happy birthday.
Thank you for my birthday cake.
It was-
For my, Tim Eberline.
Thank you, Tim. Councilmember Hurtak. Councilmember Carlson.
Two things real fast. The first one is, with these big design, build, and other contracts we have, the general contractor typically gets a management fee, like a percentage of the overall project. But there's a question about whether they're allowed to get a markup on the subcontractors. And I talked to staff, and it's not clear whether they're allowed to do that or not. And so I would like to make a motion to ask staff to report on June 20th as to whether contractors on design build contracts and others can mark up or make a commission on subcontractors, how that impacts the RFQ or RFP process, and how such information is reported and made public.
Second.
We have a motion from Councilmember Carlson, second from Councilmember Henderson. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Yes, sir. Anything else?
Thank you. Yeah, one more. There's a question about how every organization, part of what I do in my day job is dealing with crises. There's a question in any organization about how an organization handles whistleblowers. And so I would just like to make a motion to ask city staff to return on June 20th, to review any applicable ordinances and state statutes that protect whistleblowers and the processes the city uses to protect them.
Councilmember Carlson with the motion. Do we have a second? Second, Councilmember Henderson. All in favor?
Aye.
Councilmember, Mr. Shelby? No?
You have it, do you have something?
Wait, no. Who was, Councilman Vieira still has it. Yes, sir?
Councilman Vieri, you guys have to
Well,
return to him?
Councilmember Clendenna needs to make a quick correction.
I need to make a correction on the date on the motion that I had about the special events process. Not June 6th. The new date is June 20th. I forwarded that change to the clerk.
We have a motion from Councilman Clendenna, second from Councilmember Miranda. All in favor? Aye. Councilmember Vieira, you wanted to clean up some
Yes,
stuff?
sir. So 3 items. I have the administration to present quarterly written updates on Fire Station 24 and the maintenance and supply facility projects, to move that to May 16th. We have a pretty open agenda.
Motion from
First,
Councilmember Vieira, second from Councilman Miranda. All in favor? Aye. Yes, sir?
then staff to provide an update on Mayor's Veterans Committee. Let's move that to May 16th.
We have a motion from Councilmember Vieira, second from Councilmember Miranda. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Then there is ideas on how to combat violent crime in the city. I suggest we move that to May 16th.
We have a motion from Councilmember Vieira, second from Councilman Miranda. All in favor? Aye.
And then that day, we have the public, or the annual Public Safety Master Plan. I'm going to talk to police and fire on whether or not we can move that, just to make room, because this is a packed agenda, so that'll hold on.
Thank you very much, sir. Mr. Shelby?
Yes, thank you. Just a reminder to the public and to City Council especially that you have a special call meeting this coming Monday, April 8th, 2024, right here at 315 East Kennedy Boulevard, 3rd floor, Tampa 33602 at 9 a.m., at which time you will be meeting and talking with the candidates for budget analyst. And also, please be reminded that you have added to that the efficiency items for improving your agenda. So I will see you then Monday. Thank you.
May I have a motion to receive and file? Motion to receive. Councilmember Henderson with the motion, second Councilman Miranda. All in favor? Aye. We are adjourned.